It is 2 a.m. on December 17th, 2015, and my body, at once slowed from exhaustion and acutely attuned to itself from pain, wakes me up. My upper abdomen is swollen, and an ache pulses from that region to my back. My body refuses to remain still in any position, so I pace around across my apartment, trying everything to get short-term relief. Now, this isn't the same kind of pain that comes from bruising or sprained muscles. I'm still trying to make sense of it, but it felt as if my body were protesting, trying its hardest to fold into itself because it couldn't go on like this anymore. It hurt to be in a body. We were never meant to break like this. It is 6 a.m. and I'm sitting on the floor in an emergency room lobby, pushing my back against an end table because I decide that's the only way I can stay in my body any longer. 2 security guards approach me and tell me that I have to sit in a chair or leave. I go to the bathroom, even though I don't really need to, and I try to lie across 2 chairs, but they have armrests, and I probably look silly anyways. Eventually, a doctor calls me into a back room, and I'm a little confused because the 2 white men who were admitted before me weren't required to do this. He wants to know about my pain I'm feeling and what I do with my life, which to me at least is a strange question to be asked when you just want to feel better again. I answer anyways, and he tells me he needed to make sure my story was believable first. I wonder which parts of me didn't make sense to him, and I wince a little because it is as if Native bodies weren't allowed to hurt in a world bent on our destruction. Sometimes all we know is pain. What happens when bodies no longer feel like bodies, but like wounds? The doctor can't believe it. He tells me I likely have gallstones, but that they are usually only symptomatic in people 30 years and older. 21, he says, is almost anomalous. He gives me T3s and something to treat nausea, then schedules an emergency ultrasound. I periodically fall asleep on makeshift beds I build with chairs I find in the waiting rooms, and at 12 p.m., I'm officially diagnosed with gallstones and discharged. The doctor gives me a colleague's contact information, a surgeon who will determine if I need surgery or not, and warns that I could experience upwards of 50 gallstones attacks in my lifetime if I don't have the operation or if I don't strictly monitor my diet. It took an ocean to break us. How to write a eulogy for people whose first breaths were also their last. Now, gallstones, either made up primarily of cholesterol or bilirubin, form in liquid stored in the gallbladder concrete. Gallstones can move from the gallbladder and lodge in any of the ducts that carry bile from the liver to the small intestine, thereby producing inflammation in the liver, sometimes in the liver, in the gallbladder, and the ducts. If left untreated, it can be fatal because the gallstones can lodge and prevent fluids from circulating in your body. Alongside obesity, diabetes, and a diet high in fat and cholesterol and low in fiber, a common factor for the formation of gallstones is ethnicity. According to the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Disorders and Diseases, Native Americans have the highest rate of gallstones in the United States. In fact, the majority of Native American men will have gallstones by the age of 60, and among some Indigenous communities in Arizona, for example, 70% of Indigenous women have gallstones by the age of 30. I want to argue that the high incidence of gallstones among Indigenous peoples is absolutely of a piece with settler colonialism's world-shattering force, which is to say that settler colonialism is the ongoing structure through which non-Indigenous peoples and their state forms build their political lives on territories not entirely their own at the expense of Indigenous peoples, our legal orders, and our various philosophies. For Indigenous peoples who have been and continue to be dispossessed of their lands, who are likely to go missing and to be murdered in this country, who, as Dr. Janet Smiley has made public, will experience pervasive forms of racism in the healthcare system, bodily collapse will often be what living feels and looks like for us. There is a politics to gallstones. This is not merely about a genetic predisposition to secrete high levels of cholesterol in the bile, but also about the forms of living and surviving in violence that Native people will be forced to live in order just to be in this world, a world that has already written most of us off as undeserving of life. For cultural theorist Mel Shen, some populations throw a wrench into life and death's proper boundaries. Populations for whom the good life has never been a viable option because premature death is more probable for us than anything else. What does it mean that for some more than others, their bodies will slowly destroy themselves from the inside? It's a strange sensation, wanting to abandon the thing that's keeping you in this world. that Indigenous peoples live with HIV, diabetes, and gallstones, among other illnesses, infections, and diseases at a disproportionately high rate is not at a level of epidemic or crisis, as media usually put it, but instead part and parcel of the work of colonialism, such that the labor of maintaining one's life for some of us becomes too hard to keep up with. I would say that colonialism takes a biological and a dietary form, speeding up the body's decomposition and leaving our organs too damaged to sustain life. My body doesn't belong to me anymore, but I expect it didn't from the start. Imagining the future is rarely ever a neutral enterprise. What does it mean when the future for Indigenous peoples looks mostly like hospital waiting rooms and illness? What happens when sick becomes the condition of the near future, and staying attached to life also means staying attached to pain? Indigenous peoples need culturally safe healthcare. We need racism-free healthcare. We need access not only to affordable, organic, and healthy foods in our communities, but access to portable water for many of us. We need a world that wants us too in the way that we want it. For some of us, the future is already over, but that does not mean we don't have anywhere else to go. Thank you.